Hi, Ron. In your honor, this is my very first selfie. So I'm remembering the day that I arrived in Pittsburgh, or maybe the day after when I went to meet with you. And I'd had a very traumatic departure from Bar Harbor. My kids weren't here, and I got upset, and I didn't know if I should be here, and I did a little boo-hoo. And you, being the trained psychologist that you were, started saying, whoa, and grabbing for some tissues. And finally, you came out with the memorable statement, well, at your age, this is the last chance you're going to get. So, Ron, thanks for the last chance. I've loved every minute of it. Have fun. See you. Bye.
Hi Ron, I just wanted to say it has been a great pleasure and privilege to teach epidemiology of chronic diseases with you last fall. We had so much fun in that class and I got to know you much better and I'm really grateful for that. I want to say that the amount of energy and enthusiasm and all this positive vibration, positive thoughts that you brought to your lectures and to the class was amazing. I have never seen anything like that, and our students were so excited. They loved the class, they enjoyed it, and not only that you made them learn epidemiology, but you also made them dance and sing and participate in teamwork, which was really difficult for them. It was just a very unique experience, and I think that you taught all of your students, and including me, to think outside the box and to be creative, which is really great. So I want to say that it's going to be very difficult to fill your shoes and teach this class on my own. So I'm going to really miss you. I hope you're going to be around and you're going to be able to give me an advice in the future. But I definitely wish you all the best and fun-filled and relaxing retirement. Although I know that you won't be relaxing much. And I really also wish you the best of luck with all of your future endeavors. Good luck.
Ron, it's a pleasure to send this video to honor you at your retirement party. Oh my God, I'm so disappointed in you. Young guy, 10 years younger than I am, and he's retiring. Oh, it's hard to believe, but okay, I do think you deserve it. You've made enormous contributions to the field. Way back when I first met you and you were still a graduate student, when you discovered that drinking beer increased HDL cholesterol. What a finding that was. It's so magnificent, and I'm so glad you did. And it's been a pleasure to work with you over the years. The one thing I regret, when we had that brilliant idea to study physical activity, diet, transit time, and colon cancer. We wrote a brilliant grant application for NIH, but they wouldn't fund it. And I thought it would have been so much fun to ship all that fecal matter to you for analysis. And of course, we would have found some very important findings from that study. But anyway, we didn't get to do it. But of course, to be more serious now, your major academic achievement is, of course, the super course. And Jane wanted to be here to participate in this interview, but she wasn't able to make it this afternoon. But I can tell you, Ron, Jane has told hundreds, if not thousands of people around the world, many different universities, say, oh, you have to look at the super course. And then she tells them about you, what the super course is, how important it is. And of course, I echo all those findings as well. I'm just really honored that you've included some of my lectures on Supercourse and that you have me on the Scientific Advisory Board. You're leaving a great legacy. You and all your colleagues there that run the Supercourse will really miss you, but I don't really expect you to actually retire. Maybe stop taking money from the university. That'll be okay, but be sure you keep out there plugging on.
Ron, I really envy you. You are getting out of this research business just at the right time. There's cutthroat competition for funding, new rules and regulations, additional government monitoring to oversee such important research activities like dispensing coffee at meetings. The general atmosphere has become downright brutal. Not like the good old days when research was in its heyday. Yeah, remember those good old days? Just a mere 35 years ago, when the Epi Department and Children's Hospital were kicking off that innovative diabetes registry that was funded by the JOD grant, funding was plentiful, facilities were plush, and researchers were given every modern tool to get the job done. Well, I do remember that at the beginning we went for about 2 weeks with absolutely no furniture and no telephones. But once we had an opportunity to be able to sit down on the job, we were able to go full steam ahead. I remember we were so excited to have the latest in all the modern equipment. Remember our wonderful label printer, which could spit out 25 or 30 labels per minute? Wow! And it was only the size of about 2.5 typewriters. Then we all got our own PCs, small enough to sit on your desk and weighing a mere 35 or 40 pounds just for the monitors. They were just so convenient, particularly when you had to hike only a mere 4 blocks away to go pick up your printouts, because that was the only place we could get anything done. And then there were the software packages. They were the best. There was 1022, sodas, pop, and then we leaped into the future with 1032. And of course, we had all the latest laboratory techniques Do you remember our lab technicians where they were working back there with those big water baths and by hand pouring in boiling water or ice cubes to get some accurate test results on A1Cs? And at least the air conditioning at the Iroquois building was fabulous. You know, we could open 2 windows and get cross ventilation as long as you could shoo the pigeons out of the room. And that also let in the tempting aroma of George Aiken's chicken, which we all complained about, and we all were always standing in line to get at the end of the day or at lunch. I was thinking that today they have treadmill desks and they have standing desks to help people stay healthy during the workday. But in those days, do you remember we used to race the elevator? It was so slow we could get from 5th floor down to the lobby, often before it was still lumbering down. There wasn't as much bureaucracy back then either. I recall it only took about 8 or 9 signatures from children's administrators and pit administrators for us to have our winter holiday party every year. And do you remember the good old days of Oakland? There was the summer of the exploding manhole covers, the gasoline shortage year, the year that we had a month-long transit strike that made it so difficult for people to get to work. We had the 1986 earthquake when the bricks of the Iroquois building were going back and forth. We were sure they were all going to fall off the building. And who could forget that spontaneous Allegheny County coroner tag team match between Joshua Parker and Cyril Weck, where they were like duking it out in front of the GSPH auditorium. Well, I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, and congratulations on your retirement. Good luck. See ya.
Hi Ron, on this special time of your retirement, I wanted to bring back a few memories that I have of you. I thank you very much for being a wonderful advisor. I attribute my success to you and your drive and your initiation and how you made it so much fun. One of my favorite memories is when I was writing my dissertation. You know, once you finish a section, then you feel like, oh, you can relax a little bit because you have to have Ron read it, and then, you know, you could take the night off. But you were always so quick to return your comments that I remember one day you gave me back the comments on the same day. So I felt like, no, I didn't want to see them so early because I thought I could have the night off and not have to begin revising based on your comments. Another fun memory I have is going to ACSM with you. We were like the only non-jocks there, and I think the meeting was in San Diego, and we were sitting by the pool probably having a beer or something, and everybody was doing laps in the pool because it was ACSM. And then we were flying home, and I remember we flew home through Texas, and I had a blue dress on with red trim, so I looked like an American Airlines flight attendant. And so everybody kept asking me questions on where's this, where's that, and I remember you turned to me and you were like, why did you wear that dress? That's crazy. So anyway, Ron, I wish you a lot of good fortune and good luck in your retirement. I know it really won't be a retirement. You're going to be on to new and better things and still maintaining the super course, I'm sure. I can't imagine you not doing that. And now I guess with the Library of Alexandria is another wonderful project. So you've contributed so much to public health, and I thank you for all of what you've done for me and for the field of epidemiology and for public health, and really appreciate your humor. One more thing, I remember that always I whenever I don't get a grant funded and I get back the score and it's not funded and I get dejected, I always remember what you said, was you wrote like 30 grants before you got one funded. So I think that always inspires me to keep moving and never give up. So thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Good luck. Love you.
Do something. Hi. What's your family's name? Your wife?
Julia.
Well, hello, Julia. Very glad to meet you. It's good to see you.
We hope you can come next time.
This operated in different system, PAL system, so we can watch it only in Novosibirsk.
Oh, this is not fair.
Yeah.
See, maybe we can be here. Jean, here. Okay. Very nice having a picture taken. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Maybe next week we'll be on Siberian television. It's going to be good.
Only at my 2 years.
Hi Ron, it's been 35 years since we first met, and it's been a wonderful 35 years in many ways, and I'd like to thank you for your companionship and guidance in many ways, and inspiration. It's been reassuring to me over the years to know that there is somebody else who has as poor a sense of direction as I do, and also almost as bad a memory as I do. Just two examples of that would be the night in San Francisco at the ADA when you had gathered a group of about 30 people to take to dinner, and you were a wonderful restaurant and took us up and down the hills of San Francisco. It seemed in circles, and eventually an hour and a half later we arrived at your restaurant, only to find, because it was a Monday night, it was closed. The other story that really makes me feel wonderful was when I understood you flew to Alabama. However, it was the wrong Alabama that you went to. I'm going to miss all of your companionable eccentricities, but I will have many happy memories and look forward to continuing to share those and your company even in retirement. Thanks so much, Will.
All right, so ready? Let's go. Start spreading the news. Ron's going away. He's leaving for retirement. That's Ron Laporte. This electronic book is our way to say you mean so much to all of us. That's Ron Laporte. Your tribe all thanks you for your guidance as our chief. You trained us how to succeed despite all the grief. Your out-of-box style may drive others wild, but we have grown to handle it. That's Ron Laporte. He trained his students well. Their turn to cause the hell. Your legacy, oh Ron Laporte. Oh, Ron Laporte, we hope you realize that train will live on. Please know that you're number one, top of the list, head of the heap, and super horse. As you plan your change for your next life phase, you're gonna make a brand new start of it back in retirement. And we know you'll make it there, you'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, oh Ron Laporte. Laporte. That was perfect.
I wouldn't say perfect, but
No,
it was
perfect.
a lot better than it was started out.
Ron models for me the meaning of 7 adjectives in English. Competent. He knows what he's talking about in global health. Caring. He's focused in adding value to teachers and students, sharing high-quality content in his field. Committed. He does what he said he will do. Creative. He has a unique way to connect the dots to identify key community problems and to generate effective solutions. Congruent. His exposed core values and actions are one. Contrarian. When he anticipates the death of medical journal in their print form, I can assert that initially he was not well received. Courageous. He accepts the reality as it is with enthusiasm. Thank you for offering me the opportunity to share my thinking and gratitude to Ron.
Well, Ron, 30 years that we've known each other. Congratulations first on your retirement. I'm happy that you've been able to put in a good 30 years, not just with myself, but with your colleagues here and your colleagues from around the world. Went fast, at least that's my impression. So many things to talk about over 30 years. I don't have too much time to do that, but just want to bring up a couple of things maybe to rehash and set the record straight. So 30 years ago, first day on campus, someone approached me in orientation, and I was a young neophyte, and Dr. Rychek was evidently getting the word around about this new young student, and boom, orientation, here you come, introduced yourself, and thereafter the story begins. A lot of things went on in those years. It seemed like the dissertation would never arrive, but it did. But there was also some interesting adventures along the way, including what seemed like millions of Japanese medical records and abstracting information for data entry for NAN, including getting you into the British Medical Journal for the first time, including lots of different adventures with the CDC and Gordon Smith and Australia and Paul Zimmet. But we were successful through your guidance, finished the degree and moved forward, and onto a postdoc in London, and lots of faxing back and forth and phone calls to get a contract with the Federal Highway Administration up and going, and some pretty neat stuff there, as well as what we did before. And then onwards and upwards, you brought me into a lot of your teaching activity. Interesting adventures there, especially when we had the students build web pages, and when we had students write abstracts, and we graded them not on what their study designs were, but we graded them on their creativity. That was always wonderful to hear the responses back. So many things have gone on, lots of good stories. The best stories are centered around the travel. Some stories can't be told on video, but there are other interesting adventures that went along. Many things stick out in my mind. A recent trip that we made to Kazakhstan and the adventure of traveling through the plateau and learning about 90 to 95 degree heat in Astana in July, and learning about Stella and other good adventures. A while ago, a trip to Egypt with you and Jan and others to teach for the American Arab Association of Medical Doctors. Wonderful sightseeing, but also some really good things to learn from the audience in terms of their reaction to our instructions in epidemiology and disasters and the internet. The super course was part of that whole process in the last 30 years, and obviously it's been a big part of what you've been doing. Just want to remind you that I was the one who came up with the name for the super course. But you did all the work, and you've gotten the credit that you deserve for that. It's been wonderful to see that develop, and I hope that you still will be able to put your energy into it. So you've left me with many things over the years, Ron, and I'm sure for the other students as well, and your other mentees. I think the biggest attributes that I want to thank you for are the issues that you've helped instill in all of us, and that's being open to new ideas. That's one of the biggest traits that you've been able to expand to myself and to others, and you certainly have followed that practice. You look through your resume. If someone looks through your resume, they'll see some really wide-ranging publications. I came into your academic career after you had already been involved in alcohol, and then pushed that aside and moved into activity and pushed that aside, and I came involved when you were high and mighty into diabetes. And really that was a dynamic period for diabetes epidemiology, not just because of the work that you were doing, but all of our colleagues in diabetes epidemiology. And what wonderful people they all were and still are, in marked contrast to many other disciplines outside of epidemiology where I've seen a fair amount of infighting. So that was a remarkable period of time. After that, you moved on a little bit in injury, and that really, there's some wonderful people in that area as well that I've had a privilege to meet through you initially and then through my own work. And then you've moved on to BitNet and the internet. That was cool stuff, and I didn't realize at the time what it might all mean, but it just looked like it was something that was going to be huge. You brought in Kevin Allen from USA Today really early on to teach in one of our classes. That's what I mean by you being open to new ideas and big ideas. And Kevin Allen was he was the technology editor at USA Today, and he was seeing many things and recognizing the capability for healthcare, public health, and the internet. And I think your students got a lot out of that, the ones that were in that class, but also those that you were mentoring. Then obviously you've moved on to the super course and advanced that along the way. Lots of arguments about peer review. It would be interesting to see that be a little bit farther along than it is now. You had a great point that why do we need peer review? If you could set up a system where comments could come along And obviously Amazon and the others have taken you up on that, but these scientific journals haven't necessarily done that so much. And then lastly, the super course, and now you've expanded that into the Library of Alexandria. All new ideas. And as you went along that process, the other things that you've instilled in me and the others is just not the new ideas, but passion for those ideas and thinking big in those new areas, and thinking big in terms of the science behind those areas. So, I'd like to summarize for you, Ron. It's been a great 30-year ride. I wish you the best in retirement, although I trust that you will still be around for conversations and crazy ideas that we can knock off together. And I look forward to that. I want to have a couple of words of advice to you. First word of advice as you move into retirement: keep your mind active. Seems kind of hokey, but I know that you will. Build a bond ladder. Very effective means of maintaining a conservative approach to your finances. But seriously, there's no advice I can give to you. You've had a rich experience here. You have the capability of maintaining whatever level you want to maintain in the coming years. But I do want to, again, thank you. And who knows, 30 years ago, I would have thought that you would have been one of these fellows up here on the wall, but your ideas and your passion really are what drove you. And while you're not one of these fellows up here on the wall, you've done a lot to advance the science that we've been able to discover in the epidemiology of all those fields. Well done, Ron. I look forward to keeping up with you as you move on into your retirement.
Hi, Dr. Laporte. I hope you're well. I don't really know where to start, but I'm first of all very grateful for everything you've done, for taking me under your wing and supporting me and encouraging me to stay here in Pittsburgh and do my PhD. It has been really an amazing experience, an amazing journey, getting to know you, getting to meet with you on a regular basis. And I remember leaving your office after these meetings, inspired by your goals, inspired by your way of thinking, your thought process. And you taught us on how to do these high gain, high risk type of work and really aim for the difficult goals, because the harder the goals, the sweeter the reward. And I also have some nice memories of our first encounters, which were in Scotland. I remember when I first met you, I was very touched and moved by your friendliness and your humbleness. You introduced me to the Supercourse team. You introduced me to your wife, and you even told me that whenever I come to Pittsburgh, I can stay at your place, and I was so excited about that. Then you told me that you had a dog, and I was disappointed because I have dog allergies. these are some nice memories. I also remember at the conference as well, we had like a small meeting in a room around the table, and all these Scottish scientists were sitting around this table, and you showed up with a Jack Daniels bottle, and you were like, this is real whiskey and not the Scottish whiskey, and everyone was laughing, and really showed how you enjoy life, and you have this sense of humor, and you live life to the fullest. And I know that this is not the end. I'll make sure to stay in touch with you, and hopefully you and your wife will come visit us soon back home, back in Lebanon, and we have some nice time. I want to wish you luck. I want to wish you good health and happiness, and I'll talk to you soon.
How are you doing, Ron? I want to congratulate you on your special day and wish you and Jan all of the best. I reflected on the past 35 plus years, and I just remembered, like, when did I first meet you? And I think I first met you in, believe you came in the fall of 76. I could be wrong. It could have been the fall of 77, but I think it was the fall of 76. I just finished my doctorate and was working sort of as a semi-postdoc with Lou Culler and Joe Costantino on a Pittsburgh Cancer Institute. It wasn't Pittsburgh Cancer Institute yet, but an early cancer initiative. And I believe the first time I saw you, you were across the hall. You were in that you were in that big sort of open room that was on the 4th floor. And you had I remember when you walked in, you were on the far right. And I remember you were bigger than life even then. You were bigger than life, and you had lots of really good ideas. And one of the first things I remember was the beer is good for you thought, which I didn't quite get. But then as we started having buffalo wings and we started having beer parties, I realized what a great connector you were. You and Trevor were just great connectors, and the department in those days was of course a lot smaller, but we really got to know each other and shared ideas and shared basically our thoughts about studies and our thoughts about the best way to do an investigation. And I do remember your biggest claim to fame, at least then, was the article where you showed that alcohol was actually good for you with regard to cardiovascular disease. And I remember being very impressed that you put together this data set with countries and per capita alcohol consumption, and then I believe cardiovascular mortality. So that very much impressed me. But probably what impressed me more was the connector ability that you had, and how you brought people together, and we were able to become good friends, but also be able to really share ideas and to share our thoughts. So that was my first really positive reflection about your impact on our department. I think the next, and then of course you got very busy. I got very busy. You were doing diabetes. I was doing radiation, and that was in sudden cardiac death. We were going our separate ways, but we were still obviously friendly. And we were still in the department. But the next big idea you had, which I actually made fun of you, and actually you proved me wrong, was in 1993 when I first got my first really sort of big time computer, and I had dial-up, and I had AOL at American Online, and I had a dial-up internet connection. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed communicating with my other colleagues, my friends. It was fabulous. The problem was, it was, I believe even then, like $19.95 a month, maybe even more. And you had this epiphany right about that time for Global Super Course. And you also had the epiphany about the internet, it being free, and it required it promoted a flow of ideas. And I remember putting my hand up in class when you presented, and you said, this is the next great thing, and this is going to revolutionize public health. I put my hand up, and I said, Ron, I hate to burst your bubble, but computers are expensive. The internet, at least where I live with AOL, was $19.95 a month. You had to have the equipment, the modem, the computer. I said, I hate to tell you this, but I don't think it's going to ever go anywhere. I remember saying to you, I think it'll be good for, a few institutions across the country, but I don't see proprietary information, slides, articles. I really beg to differ. I just don't think it's going to go anywhere. Well, needless to say, 20 years later, you have proven me wrong. It revolutionized everything. It revolutionized medicine. It revolutionized public health. Certainly your Global Super Course shows that. And I just think it's very funny, because I really was sort of a naysayer in 1993. So I want to apologize for that formally and tell you that you really are special. You are the consummate big idea person. I think you think out of the box, which I think is a very good lesson for your students and certainly for your friends. And I just hope we stay in touch and we remain friends forever. And I wish you and Jan all the best. And I hope we party on. Thank you.
Hi Ron, congratulations on your retirement. You and I first met at the US-Japan Diabetes Training course held in summer 1991. You are my mentor, and back then I was a physician treating diabetic patient. But by attending the course, I was fascinated by the idea of epidemiology as a basic science of disease prevention. And in fall 1991, I received a letter from you which changed my life. The letter said, "You are one of the most brilliant students I ever taught. Why don't you come to Pittsburgh to learn epidemiology?" Then I came to Pittsburgh in 1994. Eventually I found out that you sent the same letter to every student of yours at the course, and only I came to Pittsburgh. But you have been so nice to me since then, though my initial plan was to just get an MPH, but you strongly encouraged me to be a PhD student, then a postdoc, and then a faculty member at our department. Ron, I have learned a lot from you. You are a great man of vision. What you have envisioned back in 1990s as to journal publication came into reality in 10 years. You are a great man of faith. You are always passionate about what you are believing and have overcome many obstacles. You are a great man of creativity. You always value out-of-the-box thinking. Also, I have learned that creativity does not necessarily mean a brand new thing, but sometimes it means a combination of very different things. Again, congratulations on your retirement, Ron, my great teacher and my great mentor. Thank you.
Hi, folks, especially Ron Laporte, and I'm very sorry, Ron, that I'm not at your big event today. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm in Texas at my granddaughter's graduation from high school. Time really flies, and it's kind of amazing to think that I have a granddaughter who's about to go to college, but also I can remember when you first came as a graduate student in the 1970s to the Department of Epidemiology. It's a long time back, and a lot of things have happened over those many, many years. I'm videotaping this from the Library of Belfield, a little bit smaller than the Library of Alexandria, but we also have an interesting collection of rare and exotic books that nobody else has or would want to have anyway, because they're all out of date, but I like to look at them for historical significance. Let's begin, Ron, by asking, who are you? You go many, many different places. Some people might think you're a travel agent. I've heard underlying rumors around for the last many years that you're actually an undercover CIA operative, but we don't really believe that. I hope not anyway. If you are, you're not a very good one. Then recently there's been suggestions that you're a UPMC employee working in the transplant program. I'm not really sure of that either, but maybe. Somebody suggested you work for the National Geographic magazine and that you're actually going out and doing photo shoots all over the world. But most of us here recognize that you're a very important individual who has a great concern for the health of people around the world, and have done, I think, a great service by trying to link knowledge, the ability to provide knowledge to people who need that knowledge to make proper decisions regarding health, health care, and public health and preventive medicine. You focused your career, at least in recent years, on a really interesting and rather unique topic, and that is how to bring knowledge to the world. I thought I would start out a little bit today by sort of reviewing your history. Many people, I'm sure, at the party don't really know the history of Ron Laporte at the Graduate School of Public Health. You came as one of our first postdocs, a psychologist, interested in health. Your career at the beginning really spanned three interesting areas. One were the studies that we did on alcohol and cardiovascular disease, funded, interestingly enough, by, I think, the Alcohol Beverage Foundation and by my friend and former dean of both the School of Public Health and the Medical School at Hopkins, Tommy Turner. Tommy Turner had a great interest in the health effects of alcohol above the adverse effects that we all know about, but really the question of the effects of alcohol in relationship to what we might call social drinking and health effects, especially in cardiovascular disease. Interestingly, the work developed in relationship to the observation that you made that there was a very linear and strong correlation between alcohol intake among countries and lower rates of coronary heart disease. And I remembered when we put together that rather interesting correlation paper showing the inverse relationship between alcohol intake in the population, per capita consumption, and coronary disease, and presented it actually tongue-in-cheek as a joke to point out that how dangerous it is to look at correlations at one of the meetings on the trends in geographic variations in cardiovascular disease, and how Brian McMahon, the then chairman of the department at Harvard, was so excited about these interesting results. For many years, you collaborated with the St. John's Hospital studies of individuals who were being treated for alcohol-related problems, and demonstrated remarkable changes in HDL cholesterol after they had stopped drinking, with a dramatic elevation of HDL when they entered the treatment facility, and then a huge drop in HDL over 3-4 weeks while they were in the alcohol treatment facility. An important observation of the relationship between alcohol intake and HDL cholesterol, and suggestion at that time, which perhaps is not completely correct given the current data, that the association between alcohol and coronary disease might be modulated by the strong effect of alcohol and HDL, which for many years, and still to some degree, and still to this day, is a very important and interesting observation. Your second and most important area, and perhaps which got you into global health, was, of course, the work on insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus. You established one of the best and probably most important registries of insulin-dependent diabetic children in Allegheny County, working with the late Dr. Alan Drash, Dorothy Becker, later Trevor Orchard, myself, and Jan, in what became first a registry in Allegheny County, and then registries popping up all over the world to study the incidence and determinants of insulin-dependent diabetes. I think your work with these many different registries, China, Japan, Finland, etc., really stimulated your interest in doing international studies, and also for the idea that collaborative knowledge base and was critical to future successes in preventive medicine and public health. Those studies were extremely valuable and provided a great deal of insight into the genetic epidemiology of insulin-dependent diabetes, and unfortunately made it seem that the study of the genetic environmental lifestyle interactions would be relatively simple for many chronic diseases. Diabetes turned out to be the big winner, and after that we haven't had any really as big or as successful outcomes using the same and similar approaches. Your third area was, of course, physical activity. Ron, as you remember, you initially believed that physical activity was good for other people. Then you believed it wasn't good for anybody, perhaps. Then you met Ralph Paffenbarger and others in the Harvard studies of physical activity and the Harvard students, follow-up studies, and you got interested in potential benefits of physical activity. You developed a strong and important relationship with Ralph and others in that group for many years, and again made important contributions in the study of physical activity. Most important, however, was the interest you developed in trying to bring knowledge to other populations. I don't think many people in the room recognize that you were probably one of the forerunners of the idea of open medical journals, of using the internet for rapid communication, for trying to bridge or abolish the barriers that had been created by complex editorial reviews and obviously considerable bias in types of publishing that had gone on for many years. You were in the forefront in the battle for more open publications, for making available information as quickly as possible to as wide an audience as was possible at the time. Your initial attempts with the supercourse in collecting numerous reports, talks, commentaries, etc., from many people around the world was strongly criticized, as you remember, because it did not go through peer review. And your argument that perhaps peer review was less important than the need initially to get the information out and to work with organizations with expertise around the world to enhance the documentation of information that was so important in many parts of the world, which totally lacked any access to modern medical knowledge. I remember your ideas working with IBM and NASA to try and put satellites into different parts of the world so that you could transmit information into Africa or Asia, or that was not possible under the current techniques. We take it for granted right now that we have the online publications such as the PLOS One and Two, PLOS Medicine, published by the National Institutes of Health, but these are really recent additions to publications, and you were in the forefront in the development of this technology. You continued driving this effort in spite of, I think, considerable obstacles from many in the academic community who were tied to the traditional approaches for publication and for disseminating information. And I think there still is a considerable degree of concern within the healthcare community about how to disseminate information to many populations. We still have a huge barrier between, as you've noted, populations where there's very little opportunity for research, where there's very little support for good research methodology, and where it's almost impossible for these investigators or academics to get published in first-rate academic journals. You have continued in spite of I would say, many difficulties that would have made other people abandon the efforts to move this field forward. And I think it's continuing to move forward in spite of the concerns of others, primarily because of yours and others' enthusiasm for the importance of dissemination of knowledge. Ron, you've made a major contribution over these years to the health of populations around the world. It may not be recognized as much at Pitt because it doesn't generate huge grants or contracts, but it's made important contributions, perhaps above and beyond that of just number of R01s or number of publications in peer-reviewed journals. I know you're planning to continue in your efforts, and I know you'll continue to be successful. You're working in a very important area. You're continuing to work, let's say, in a very important area with limited resources limited funding, limited interest for many people in the power base, but yet I think an area that has very great potential. I remember George Hutchison, who was a professor of epidemiology in Harvard, and really one of the great teachers of epidemiology, once telling me that it would be better, that it is better to train 10 students in how to do good research than it is to have one important or interesting publication. The idea that George had, and I think you've carried forward remarkably, is that the dissemination of knowledge to students around the world is the key to the improvement in public health. Keep up your work even in your retirement, Ron, and we hope the best for you. Congratulations, and I'm sorry I missed your great party.